Hello, everybody. Brenna here.
And I'm Gabby.
And this is the Mystery of Everything podcast. Whoop, whoop.
Yay.
All the cheers. One day I will learn how to use the roadcaster
Soundboard.
thing. Yeah, the soundboard. And I'll put in like little cheesy claps and it'll be great. But today is not that day. Today we have a lot going on. It's moving day for Brenna. So that's exciting. And I'm thinking next Bren episode, we have some exciting news that I'll share next Bren episode. And then some of you all be like, makes sense, makes perfect sense. So yeah. But today's episode is brought to you by James Brain. Everybody thank James for this.
Thanks, James.
James has been very kind to Bryn. Bryn has been sick, so he has been an angel. And he gave us this amazing script. Most of the information in the script was obtained from the book Captured, The Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience by Stanton T. Friedman and Kathleen Martin. I actually have never heard of this before.
Really?
Really? Have you?
I've listened to every single podcast episode on this event that is out there, I swear.
What? This is new to me.
You're going to love it.
What we're getting into, honestly, because I didn't even pre-read the script.
Ooh.
In true Brenna fashion. So if there's some hard words in here, well,
R.I.P.
You know what's going to happen. All right, let's dive into it because we got a lot to do today in a little time. It's already 1:00. And I ain't done shit today except watch Big Brother and lay in bed when I should be packing. But that's neither here nor there. There's a new season out of Big Brother. If any of you guys watch it, let me know what's up. Oh, by the way, Patreoners, I'd been slacking because I've been sick, but I got an idea for the next episode and I think it's going to be fun.
We'll be back this month, I promise, because I've gotten a decent amount of DMs that are like, I tried to sign up for Patreon and it says you're not taking new subscribers right now. So we're sorry about that, but we will be back.
Baby angels, I'm so sorry. We've been down and out. We've been slack-a-lacking. But I'm officially moving today and things are looking up, maybe. I have to get Starlink, guys, because it's like internet's not offered where I live in BFE. So that's an adventure. $500 for them to ship you the stuff. Because, like, for normal internet, you're renting the shit that they send you. You're not actually buying it. But for Starlink, you're buying the shit. So I have to pay $500 initially and then $100-something a month, which is, like, a lot of money.
Wow.
I know. And I have to pull that out of my ass somehow. Because I need internet. Like, now, I can't move to the house because there's no service there. So I can't move there and not have service and not have internet. And I still got to record episodes. So I'm a little stressed, but I will get Starlink and then hopefully all will be well and I can somehow pull $500 out of my asshole. It'll be fine. I've pulled bigger things out of my asshole. That's a joke.
Anyway, the episode.
I'm sorry, guys. Okay. So after the modern UFO age, between Kenneth Arnold's sighting of 9 metallic craft flying near Mount Rainier in 1947, there were a number of people who asserted that they had made contact with extraterrestrials. One was George Adamski, whose 1953 book, Flying Saucers Have Landed, detailed a meeting in the California deserts with a man from Venus who had long, sandy brown hair and a brown suit who had telepathically communicated a concern about mankind's nuclear weapons. Other contactees quickly followed suit, many of them making the same claim that the Venetians wanted us to stop making nuclear weapons.
Why? Why were they so invested in our nuclear weapons?
Why? I don't know, but we're going to find out. But it was Betty and Barney Hill, an interracial couple living in New Hampshire, whose strange experience on the night of September 19th, 1961, would become the first truly credible story of an alien encounter. And their story is what we'll be diving into today. How have I never heard of this?
I don't know.
How? Oh, sorry. I took a brief pause there because if you hear something that sounds like fairy bells, my girls just got a hold of a cat toy, but luckily they took it to the other room. So for a second, I was like, am I going to have to give them the people's elbow? But it's not looking like I'm going to have to. Okay, anywho, the Hills lived in Portsmouth. That's always hard for me to say. Is it Portsmouth? Because that's what it looks like.
I think it is.
Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Unless they say Portsmouth. But that
It's probably
sounds wrong.
Portsmouth because Portsmouth. Sorry to everybody who lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It sounds weird. You all know what I'm talking about. Anyways, they lived there. Barney was employed by the United States Postal Service while Betty was a social worker. He was 40 and she was 43. Active in the local Unitarian congregation, the Hills were also members of the NAACP and community leaders. And Barney sat on a local board of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. They were an interracial couple at a time when it was particularly uncommon in the United States. Barney was black and Betty was white. The Hills were driving back to Portsmouth from an impromptu late honeymoon vacation in Niagara Falls in Montreal. Driving in a 1957 Chevrolet. 1957. Guys, I don't know if I've said this before, but my favorite vehicle of all time is a 57 Chevy Bel Air 2-door hardtop, preferably in baby blue, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways.
That's so particular.
I know. My dad had one whenever we were younger, but he always told me you can either have nice cars or you can have children, but you can't have both. So here I am.
Interesting.
And we no longer have the 57 Chevy Bel Air.
Oh, that's your fault. You monster.
It's probably like Mikey or Ravens, if I had to guess. I blamed him for everything.
That's what older siblings are for.
Yeah. The blame them on everything. And I'm just a little baby. I'm just a baby. That's off of, what is that off of? I'm just a baby. I have no money. I'm just a baby.
I don't know.
He's wearing a diaper when he says it. It's a grown man. One of those. And then he has, what's it called? He has the two girls clean his house while he's in a baby outfit, in a diaper. And then whenever they're like, all right, pay me. He's like, I'm just a baby. Anyways, someone's watching this and they're like, Brenda, I know exactly what you're talking about. And they'll comment and always looking out for y'all. Sorry, hiccup. So, driving in a 1957 Chevrolet, the couple were traveling south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, through the Fransonian Notch on Route 3 when first Betty and then Barney began watching a strange flying object. Betty claimed to have observed a bright point of light in the sky that moved from below the moon and the planet Jupiter upward toward the west of the moon. While Barney navigated U.S. Route 3, Betty reasoned that she was observing a falling star. Makes sense. Only it was moving upward. Because it moved erratically and grew bigger and brighter, Betty urged Barney to stop the car for a closer look, as well as walk their wiener dog, Delcy. James? He said, he left a little note for me that says, just made you say wiener. Ha ha ha. You little shit. You little shit. I would have said wiener anyways, James. Joke's on you, whether there was a dog or not. So they stopped at a scenic picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. Barney grabbed his binoculars and began to observe the craft. It resembled an enormous pancake and would descend and hover over them. Spooked by the object, Barney grabbed his gun from the trunk and slipped it into his coat pocket and jumped back into the car and began driving south while Betty kept her eyes on the sky. Side note, Barney, love you, man, but what good is a gun gonna do against fucking aliens?
It's a shooting star moving upward. The best he could do is just, you know how people throw plates, I guess, and then they shoot at it? What is that called? Disc shooting?
Skeet.
Yeah, that's what he's probably going to practice on this.
Skeet,
I learned what skeet means from Steven the other day.
Like the dirty version of it?
Yeah. Why was that?
Did you never listen? Like, let me see you get low. You scared. Drop that ass to the floor. You scared. Stop. Oh, and wiggle with it.
No.
No?
No.
Not at your town fair when you were way too young to be listening to that on the Gravitron?
No.
Okay. Weird. But whatever. Guess that's just a me thing. Okay, so where were we at? Oh, yes. Barney with the gun and Betty with her eyes towards the sky. So Betty, who is now looking through binoculars, observed an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights travel across the face of the moon. Betty's sister had claimed to have seen a flying saucer a few years prior, and Betty thought it might be what she was observing. Through binoculars, Barney observed what he reasoned was a commercial airliner traveling towards Vermont on its way to Montreal. Which is, like, that's what, the rational brain would reason is that it's a commercial airliner, I think. I mean, that would make sense. However, he soon changed his mind because without looking as if it had turned, the craft rapidly descended in his direction. That would scare the shit out of me. This observation caused Barney to realize this object that was a plane was not a plane. Both claimed to recall an image of a fiery orb sitting on the ground. Both described an unusual buzzing sound and an odd vibration in the car as they continued traveling through the notch. And then they remembered nothing of the trip until they were passing through Ashland some 35 miles later. What? All right, that's a little spooky. A little short-term memory loss.
So this is History Uncovered, and I'm Kalina.
And I'm Austin. We are the co-hosts of the show.
History Uncovered is a podcast presented by All That's Interesting, where we both are writers. We cover all sorts of topics: true crime, unsolved mysteries, history, folklore, the paranormal, you name it.
We've been doing this now for more than 100 episodes, covering a wide range of topics, and probably something that's bound to be interesting for everyone out there.
Absolutely. And in addition to our normal episodes, we also do a history happy hour about the recent news in the world of history and archaeology, which we cover daily on the site, as well as important historical anniversaries.
We also have done some special series. We've done one on the Titanic, doing one on Jack the Ripper, done one about some famous UFO sightings. So if all of that sounds like something that might be interesting to you, and you like having a good time, learning new things, and maybe laughing or just groaning at some bad puns, check out History Uncovered everywhere you get your podcasts.
So they continued driving, getting home around 5 a.m. They shouldn't have been home any later than 2 a.m., but neither could explain the lost time. When they arrived at home, the Hills found that their watches had stopped working. They would never work again, by the way.
Spooky.
No, I don't like that at all. There were shiny, concentric circles on their car's trunk that had not been there the previous day. Betty and Barney experimented with a compass, noting that when they had moved it close to the spots, the needle would whirl rapidly. Yeah. But when they moved it a few inches away from the shiny spots, it would drop down. Don't like that at all. Also, the trip had taken them 2 hours longer than they expected. The tops of Barney's shoes were scuffed and scratched horribly, and Betty's dress was torn and stained. She also refused that night to bring their clothes inside from the car for some reason that she couldn't explain. Aw. This makes me sad because, they don't remember, and obviously some kind of shit happened to them.
Oh, yeah.
That's sad. 10 days after the alleged UFO encounter, Betty began having a series of vivid dreams, which continued for 5 successive nights. She stated that she experienced them with a degree of detail and intensity that she had never had before. After the 5th night, they stopped and never reoccurred. I don't know. That's pretty odd, although they continued to occupy her thoughts during the day. Increasingly, the couple began to argue and fight over what happened that night and why they, just couldn't remember what happened. Oh, that would cause strain on anybody's relationship.
I wonder if that's maybe it wasn't an alien. Maybe some foul play was involved,
drugged them and fucked them up or something.
Yeah. I don't know.
But then, if someone did drug them and shit, it would be odd for them to both remember seeing the thing in the sky. Because, how could you account for the thing in the sky? Their disheveled clothing and whatever's on their car is magnetic, too. So that would be hard to just be some tomfoolery. Especially during this time. Like, what year was this?
1957. But what I was saying, like, maybe, like, because they're an interracial couple, they'd be a target, you know?
Yeah, they would be a target. But still, that would be hard to, I don't know.
Fake.
I feel like that would be hard to fake. Yeah. So, okay, though at first reluctant to talk about what happened, Betty slowly began to tell people that they had seen an alien spaceship. And this bothered Barney greatly. Barney was a stoic man and liked to think of things practically. Honest, hardworking, reliable, he was a conservative and pragmatic thinker. He was also a veteran of World War II, where he'd lost his teeth due to an injury causing him to wear dentures for the rest of his life. He'd faced death in the face during the war and was not the type of man to scare easily. Definitely seems like the type of man that even if he did see aliens, he would not admit to it, because of course people are going to think you're fucking psychotic. He was a smart man with an IQ of 140. Barney was also never one to be known for telling tales. He loved his wife and his service to the community, and he had a beautiful way of calming Betty when she would get too anxious or scared. He respected Betty for her intelligence and compassion to those in need. Oh, I love love. Barney had also just changed everything about his life by moving from a predominantly black part of Philly to a near entirely white community in Portsmouth. I still feel like I'm saying that wrong. He left everything he knew behind for this marriage and the woman he loved, and he was just starting to get comfortable and used to living like this new life in New Hampshire when the incident on Route 3 happened. The last thing he wanted was another thing flipping his life upside down, and he had a sense that despite the fact that he couldn't remember what had happened, whatever happened was going to make life complicated if other people knew about it. He didn't want to be seen as the new guy from out of town who told crazy stories about spacemen abducting them. And it was already difficult enough being in an interracial marriage in a time before the civil rights movement would affect a great change in the lives of Black Americans. The tension in their marriage caused Barney to finally give in and admit to his wife that they needed to seek professional help. Walter N. Webb, a Boston astronomer and an NICAP member, met with the Hills on October 21st, 1961. In a 6-hour interview, the Hills related all that they could remember of the UFO encounter. Barney stated that he had developed a mental block and that he suspected there were some portions of the event that he did not wish to remember. He described in detail all that he could remember about the craft and the appearance of the somehow not human figures aboard it. During this interview, it was recommended to the Hills to try hypnosis therapy, as it might help them break the mental block and remember the missing time. I would like to try hypnosis therapy sometimes, but then again, I'm afraid because, like, you repress stuff for a reason. Do I really want to dig that stuff up, you know?
Yeah.
But also, I kind of do. I don't know. I have talked to my therapist about hypnosis, but we'll see where the wind blows us. Sorry about that. I yawned like my father. The Hills also reported the incident to the Air Force and were interviewed about the experience. The Air Force interviewer concluded that the Hills had probably mistaken Jupiter for a flying saucer. Don't buy it. I don't buy it. Over the next year, the Hills would struggle to recall the events of that night. They would return to the White Mountains to look for the locations where they saw the flying craft. Eventually, the Hills underwent hypnosis with the aid of psychiatrist Benjamin Simon to recover memories of the lost 2 hours. And when they heard back the tapes of their hypnosis, they were shocked. Oh, I bet that would be fucking terrifying. So Barney Sessions recalled that he was driving the car away from the UFO, but afterward he felt irresistibly compelled to pull off the road and drive into the woods. He eventually sighted 6 men standing on the dirt road. The car stalled and 3 of the men approached the car. Barney described the beings as generally similar to Betty's hypnotic recollection. He said that the beings stared into his eyes with a terrifying, mesmerizing effect. Under hypnosis, Barney said, "Oh, those eyes. They're there in my brain," from his first hypnosis session. And I was told to close my eyes because I saw 2 eyes coming close to mine, and I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes. This was from his second hypnosis session. And all I see are these eyes. I'm not even afraid that they're not connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes. Ew.
That's terrifying.
I don't love that at all. Huh. I actually have a friend. No, we're not going to get into this now. I'll have to ask the friend first. But I do have a friend who's had some alien encounters. And it can be very scary. Like, people are like, oh, this is fun and stuff. It's not always fun and stuff. Anyways, back to Barney. So while hypnotized, Barney sketched a picture of the alien he remembered seeing. It had large, slanted black eyes with no discernible ears, lips, or noses. Only a slit for a mouth and holes for nostrils where a nose should be. I'm picturing Voldemort.
Yeah.
I'm picturing a Voldy. In other words, this was the very first description of aliens as little gray men with big beady eyes. And then that is what we have aliens today. That's crazy. Very crazy. So while Betty reported a conversation with the leader in English, Barney said that he heard them speaking in a mumbling language he did not understand. Betty also mentioned this detail. The few times they communicated with him, Barney said it seemed to be thought transference. At that time, he was unfamiliar with the word telepathy. They also noticed slight variations between the aliens, with one being dressed in a uniform reminiscent of a military leader. Barney referred to this one as the Nazi and despised him because he was the one with the haunting eyes that Barney couldn't get out of his head. Barney mentioned that when he was watching the man through the binoculars standing in the window of the craft, he could hear him calling to him and telling him to come closer and that no harm would come to him. Barney remembers being scared shitless at this and filled with a terror he had never felt before in his life. I feel you, Barney. I would shit myself. He also remembered feeling like a prey animal who doesn't realize the danger they're in from a predator that is toying with them. That's enough to make you a little sick to your stomach.
Yeah, that's not okay.
No, not at all. And like, how do you come back from that either? Like, you can't. There's no coming back from that. So then the craft swooped over them, and they got back in the car terrified. Barney stopped the car suddenly as a giant orange orb landed on the middle of the road, and he got out to witness around 10 or 11 individuals coming towards him from this blinding light. Then 3 of them continued even closer. Coming to the sides of the car, they were roughly 4.5 to 5 feet tall, and they had gray skin. One of them touched Betty on her arm, and she remembered just freaking out in her head, thinking this can't be happening, and looking over to Barney, who had just fallen unconscious. Poor Betty. Oh, I can't even imagine. The next thing she remembered, they were being escorted through the woods a short distance to the alien craft where a ramp descended down onto the ground. During that brief trip to the craft, Betty recalled being frustrated that Barney was still asleep and wouldn't wake up. When she looked back at him, she could see that he was not conscious and was being carried under each arm by one of the aliens. As they carried him, the tops of his shoes were dragging across the ground in the gravel, dirt and rocks under them scuffing and scratching them. Whoa. There's the proof right there. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is on the shoes, the scuffed shoes. Betty recalled stopping at the base of the ramp into the craft and beginning to resist. She was scared of what would happen to them if they were inside the craft, and remembers one of the beings telling her via telepathy that there was no reason to be afraid. They were not going to be harmed, and after some tests, they would be returned safely and wouldn't even remember anything that had happened. Somehow this was all she needed to say okay, and she got on board the ship. But it's probably pretty plausible that she reckoned that she had no choice of escape, so she decided to be compliant because, like, what the fuck else are you going to do?
Run!
Girl, they're reading your brain. They are reading your brain. So she's probably thinking, oh, I'm going to run right here. And then they're going to be like, boom, zap. I'm already there, bitch. What's next?
True.
You got to be compliant until you kill them, but you don't even know how to kill them. And everyone knows that aliens pee out of their fingers. So their hands are touching you, you know.
Ew.
I'm just kidding. Have you ever watched Scary Movie?
I don't think so.
One of the scary movies, there's aliens, and it's making fun of the movie. Is it Signs? Sounds terrified me as a child. But anyways, there's an alien in Scary Movie, and he's putting his fingers, and I think it's Charlie Sheen's mouth, and moving his fingers around. And then he finds out they pee out of their fingers, and it's just a really funny scene. And I recommend watching it. I know it sounds stupid, but it's good shit. Oh, well, this is not the time for Scary Movie jokes and giggles. Okay. So, once aboard their ship, they were guided to separate exam rooms each, with a cold metal bed and some kind of screen that Betty compared to TV screens, but it was embedded into the wall. The quote-unquote leader seemed to not mind answering Betty's questions for the most part. When asked why they scratched her arm for a sample, he replied that they needed a sample to study human physiology. It sounds like during this taking of the sample that skin cells were harvested for either microscopic, DNA, or chemical analysis, but that information wasn't given to her, and Betty thought that they wanted the skin cell samples because Barney was black and she was white. They took a fingernail clipping and locks of her hair and placed them in little plastic bags that they placed into racks on a table on the side of the exam room. Then they told her to take off her dress. In their hurry to get the dress off and to get that spicy alien science.
Interesting choice of words, James.
The spicy alien science. It felt wrong with me saying that, by the way. That felt wrong. But they accidentally tore her dress, both at the hem and the zipper. Later, she would realize that the dress was stained with a pink powdery substance, which caused her to leave it out on a clothesline before deciding to throw it away and then pulling it back out of the garbage. Pieces of this fabric were studied by 5 different labs, with the results ruling out any natural substances originated from Betty herself as sweat, blood, vomit, or urine. The substance was deemed to have originated from an external source. What kind of external source? What kind of external source?
We may never know.
The stains were found to consist of mostly water-soluble proteins and a trace of a natural ester-type oil. This indicates moisture of some kind had been present initially as well. There was no odor on the stains, and the dye on the dress was not permanently discolored by the stain, ruling out an acid of some kind. I would not want to be the person to, smell that. Just check for odor. Get your nose up in that random pink. No. So Betty's hypothesis was that the parts of the dress which were stained, the worst were the parts that she had been dragged around by the arms of the 2 men and forced to walk towards the craft. She thought maybe it was some kind of reaction that the alien bodies had to Earth's environment, similar to sweating. So that's not as bad as where my mind was going. So yeah, much better than where Brenna's mind was going. Betty then recalled that they inserted some sort of needle-like device into her navel, and she asked why they were doing that, since she knew that she was incapable of conceiving and thought they were checking her stomach as some form of pregnancy test. This sounds almost like amniocentesis, a procedure used to check and sample amniotic fluid from pregnant women. Betty remembered the needle being between 4 and 6 inches long. Holy shit! Poor Betty. When he inserted the needle, she remembers being in agony and said it felt like being stabbed by a knife. Oh, in the belly button too. That is such a sensitive area. Oh, I don't like that. So Barney, on the other hand, remembered far less details. He remembered being taken into a room and told to sit down on an exam table made of metal, and it was roughly 4 feet long. He remembered his shoes being taken off and his shirt being removed. He remembered one of the beings being next to him conducting the exam, and the other 2 kind of just hanging out in the shadows. When they spoke to each other, it sounded unlike anything he'd ever heard, human or otherwise, and he attempted to recreate it, saying, "Mom, Mom, 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 Mama, Mom, Mom." That's what James wrote.
Best part of the episode.
This was accomplished by passing of air over a membrane just inside the mouth. It sounds like I'm trying to speak cow. Sorry, guys. I don't know what I'm supposed to be going for here. You could probably give it a goog and find out, but I don't know. I'm just guessing that's what it sounds like. The eyes were unblinking and large, wrapping slightly around the head. Ugh. They did not seem to move their eyes at all. I hate it. I hate it here. I hate it. This is a super cool episode, but like, ew. Betty's story included a conversation with the leader while Barney was being examined, and this would be the most highly contested part of the account. She stated that after what she'd been through, nobody would believe her story. She said that what she wanted was something to prove that this had happened. The leader looked around the room and asked if she'd like to take something back with her. She looked around the room and found a large book of some kind. She opened it and said it was filled with symbols written in long, narrow columns. He jokingly asked if she could read it, and she said it was unlike anything she'd ever seen. She then asked where they came from, and he asked her if she knew anything about the universe. She replied no, and then the leader walked across the room and pulled a map out of an opening in the wall. It was a star map, and it had dots and lines on it that made a distinct pattern. When asked what the various lines meant, he said that they were different expeditions of their people. When she asked which dot he was from, he replied, "Where are you on this map?" And when she laughed and said no, he replied with, "Well, if you don't know where you are, then there wouldn't be any point in telling you where I am from." Then he put the map away. Then they got interrupted by the examiner, who had gone into the room with Barney. He and the other crew were excited and buzzing about this, caused Betty to momentarily freak out, asking, "Is it about Barney? Did something happen to Barney?" And then the examiner walked up to her while talking to the leader and had Betty open her mouth. They examined her teeth with great interest and tugged on them, and suddenly the leader erupted in copious laughter, examining that the examiners were so excited because during their exam, they had discovered that Barney's teeth came out and they wanted to know if all humans could do such a thing. Oh,
That's funny.
that is funny, but like, poor Barney, like, leave him the fuck alone. He's already been through some shit in World War II, and y'all are just gonna laugh.
It gets worse for Barney, for poor Barney.
No, Barney, no. It seems like they're being nice to Betty so far. I don't want to jinx it, but, you know, am I jinxing it?
I don't think so.
All right, well, we'll see. So Betty laughed and explained to them what dentures were. She also had to explain what old age and aging meant, as the leader had no understanding of the concept of time or aging. She explained much of human culture and life, and she got around to talking about food and mentioned vegetables. When Betty said that her favorite vegetable was squash and that it was yellow, the leader said, "What is yellow?" This caused Betty to look around the room trying to find something yellow to show him, but it was as if the color yellow didn't exist on the ship. So what else is happening to Barney while Betty is having her little chat with the leader? Oh no, James. No. Oh, well, it involves butt stuff, unfortunately. Yeah, you said it was going to get worse, Gab.
Yeah.
Never butt stuff. Okay. All right. Well, we got to do this. We have to tough through it. They flipped him over on his belly and stuck a probe. I'm not going to say that, James. They stuck a probe up his anus. Jameson. Jamesy. Your wording is spectacular. Thankfully, he said it didn't hurt. While on his stomach, they poked at his back along each vertebrae, gently prodding and pushing as they went. Samples were taken from every orifice of both of the Hill's bodies, including a sperm sample taken with a device that looked almost like an athletic groin protector cup and caused no pain or climax. Ow. You would think he would have to, you know.
Just a little vacuum.
I don't think that's how that works, but maybe. What do I know? I'm not an alien. So months later, he would develop warts in the shape of concentric circles in the exact place that the device had been placed. They were initially thought to be venereal warts, but the surgeon who removed them stated that they were definitely not genital or venereal warts. What the fuck? Poor Barney. And I mean, shit, poor Betty too. Like I said, every orifice of their body, which means she's getting prodded too. And that means Barney's pee hole probs got prodded, and that does not sound fun.
Have you ever heard of sounding?
Yes, I have. And I mean, I'm not judging. I guess it's fun to some people. I'm not judging. You know, sound if you want to, if it's consensual. That's
consensual
all that matters.
sounding.
Consensual
only.
sounding. Consensual butt stuff. We love consent.
Consent.
We love consent. Even if you want to dock, I learned what docking is the other day. Dock it up. Dock it morning, noon, and night. Consensually. Do you know what docking is, Gabby?
Yes.
I learned what it was not that long ago. Learn something new every day. So, moving on. At roughly the same time that Barney's exam was finished, another shorter alien walked into the room that Betty and the leader were in, and he was super fucking mad. Super pissed. He had been waiting in the darkened hallway outside her exam room, and every time the door opened, he glared at her, causing her to be like seriously uneasy. He is the same alien that Barney referred to as the Nazi, and it was around this time that Betty realized that he was the real quote unquote leader, and that she had been referring to so far the alien that she'd been referring to so far as the leader was more than likely an interpreter, according to her like guesstimation. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there for a second. But this new authoritative figure was shorter and uglier with bumpier, more textured skin and a smaller head more proportionate to his body. Since we already have a character in the story named the leader, I'm just going to call him Space Hitler. That makes sense, James, and I'll stick by that. He made sounds towards the rest of the crew that Betty had never heard, but she sensed his hostility big time. Dude was giving off major, like, middle management vibes. We all know the type. When she was exiting the craft, he snatched back the book given to her, and the leader apologized, saying that, most of the time, or that most of them thought giving her the book was okay, but others did not feel the same way. I wish they would have let her keep the book. Maybe we could translate. He also told her that her and Barney's memories of the incident were to be erased. Then Betty told the leader, "It doesn't matter. You can take the book back, but you can never, ever, ever make me forget about it. No matter how hard you make it, I'll remember it if it's the last thing I do." The leader then laughed and said, "Maybe you will remember. I hope you don't, but maybe you do." It was at this point that Betty and Barney Hill watched aliens walk back into their craft. The ramp was retracted and the ship blasted off at a high speed, leaving a burnt pile of soot on the ground underneath the spot it had been situated on. Betty and Barney then stumbled back to their car, and shortly thereafter, the beeping sounds that started the whole encounter repeated, and this is where their regular memories picked up again. The Hills kept their story largely to themselves until 1963, when they shared the details of it with members of their church. And then in October of 1965, the story would finally explode. The Boston Traveler published an account of their story, and they were suddenly famous, even though they'd never made out any attempts at seeking publicity. And here is where we end our story and where we ask, well, what really happened? And it would seem that there are three major possibilities. 1, the Hills were completely telling the truth and aliens really do exist. 2, both of them are knowingly lying. This seems most unlikely based on their exemplary character. 3, Betty Hill may have had mental health issues such as generalized anxiety and an overactive imagination based on her nightmares and sudden outbursts at times. Barney knew this and played along with her delusions until he himself began to believe them in a bizarre case of shared delusions, which is astronomically rare. The only good thing about the last option is that it would mean that Barney Hill loved Betty so much that he literally drove himself slightly crazy going along with her illness until he himself developed it, which is like almost romantic. But the guy really went through hell in therapy rather than to tell his woman she's cray-cray. James, don't call women cray-cray. Even if she's a little cray-cray. I don't believe the third one, although it is slightly romantic. I feel like Barney is like a no-nonsense guy. So let's say, hypothetically, generalized anxiety. I have it too. And I do have an overactive imagination. Maybe that leads me to I'm leaning more towards Betty's side, but even then. So like Barney's a no-nonsense guy. Chris is a no-nonsense guy. Even if I was like just deep into I don't know, psychosis or if I was delusional, I don't think I would be able to pull Chris into it, even if he did like love me so much. Gab, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, no, Steve would tell me to shut the fuck up. Like, Steven will literally go along with literally everything I want. But if I'm being extraordinarily insane, he's like, you got to get it together, girl.
See, so I don't think that the third one is plausible because Barney was like he was a no-nonsense dude. I don't see the third one as an option. I don't see them both lying. And if they were both lying, like then they're doing a fucking stand-up job as far as putting all of that together.
I feel like something weird did happen. Do I know if it's aliens? No. But something weird more than likely did happen to them.
And do I think that they think it was aliens? Yes.
Yeah.
Whether it was or not, who knows? I kind of am team alien. Like, I think it was aliens. But I do believe that they wholeheartedly think they were abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
I don't know. We may never find the truth about what happened to Betty and Barney Hill with any degree of certainty, but one thing can be said for sure. Ever since they've told their story, almost every alien abduction story that exists mentions something that first originated from the Hills abduction story. Like the entire concept of the little gray men existed based on their story, and whatever happened to them, they went through it together. I also think that gives more to their story as far as plausibility is because like their stories coincide together, their timelines match up. Shit, the scuffs on his shoes, like yes, that kind of stuff can be faked, but also
a lot of effort to fake all of that.
A lot of effort to fake it. So Barney Hill would pass away from a sudden stroke on February 25th, 1969. That is not that much time. It's passed. He was 46 years old. Damn. Aw, sad. Betty Hill would go on to become a massive celebrity in the UFO community, and she never remarried. She passed of cancer on October 17th, 2004 at the age of 85. Aw. There's a really great TV movie from 1975 called The UFO Incident, and it tells the Hills story with James Earl Jones, who is the voice of Darth Vader, playing the role of Barney and Estelle Parsons as Betty Hill. It has amazing performances, and it's able to watch for free on YouTube. Check it out if you want. Just do it. And that's all we got for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this amazing story. It was brought to you by James.
Thanks,
and it's
James.
a good one. Even though I don't like that you added the word poop shoot into my script, James. But I still love you because I still love you. Anyways, guys, sorry I've been a little MIA. I'm feeling back. I'm better than ever, baby. Patreon's gonna go back. We're gonna do Patreon episodes. I have a few in mind that they're gonna be fun, and then my next like actual episode's gonna be fun, and everything's gonna be fun. We're all gonna have so much fun. It's gonna be crazy.
Yay!
Yay! So subscribe to our Patreon when we turn it back on, because I'm sure you've just really been wanting to.
If Bren can have her episode written next week, we'll be back next week.
Oh, I'm back, baby. Back and better than ever. Not better than ever. But I am back. I'm going to be doing shit. I'm on some meds now. It's got me like pretty all right. I only puke like once or twice a day. Golden. And this will all make sense eventually. So yeah, love you guys. Thanks for hanging in there. It's been the most chaotic months of my entire life. And I'm glad I can share it with you all and document it forever for the entirety of history. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.